This week we're going to talk about what I call germ-line infection of woke ideas. This is when schools and institutions train professionals and students to destroy all standards of competence. But worse, they're making sure that woke and incompetence is seated in the germ-line. Every person they train will then pass this mental rot down to the next generation. This week we've got examples of teachers who think grammar is racist, major medical schools that won't hire white people, and states that are dropping the bar exam as a requirement to become a lawyer. It's all germline infection. And later in the show, we've got a conversation between me and my friend George from vacation last week. We're going to talk about the living decay that is Madonna, based on the show we saw from her last week. Now, even if you're not interested in her particularly, I get it, but please stick around. The conversation is really about terminal cluster B disorders, and boy howdy does she have them. And about how our teenage idols look different to us when we grow up and they don't. From my less dystopian drawing room in woke Vermont, this is the show where we talk about politics, culture, and relationships from a psychological perspective. I'm Josh Slocum. This is being recorded for March 23rd, 2024. Welcome to Disaffected. Let's go. So what we've got this week, and the reason why I'm recording from home is because we've got a major snowstorm coming in overnight, which is going to make it difficult for me to get into the Burlington studio and is going to keep me tied up with snow blowing all day tomorrow. So, word of warning, this recording may include cats. They cannot be herded. They cannot be trained. I can't do anything with them. So if they pop up, just say hi. All right, let's start out with Washington State and lawyers. Take a look at this headline on your screen. Supreme Court bar exam will no longer be required to become attorney in Washington State. Now, you wouldn't want your surgeon to have passed his exams, would you? It's not necessary for an electrician to pass any competence test either if he's going to wire your house, right? I mean, that would just be overkill. So why should your lawyer have to jump through these stupid hoops? Every week I say this to myself, I can't believe this is the real world and that what I'm reporting on is actually true, but it is. Are you feeling disaffected yet? Here's a little bit from the Spokesman Review newspaper from Washington State. The bar exam will no longer be required to become a lawyer in Washington. The state Supreme Court ruled in a pair of orders Friday. The court approved alternative ways to show competency and earn a law license after appointing a task force to examine the issue in 2020. I wonder what happened in 2020. The Bar Licensure Task Force found that the traditional exam, quote, disproportionately and unnecessarily blocks marginalized groups from becoming practicing attorneys and is at best, quote, minimally effective for ensuring competency, according to a news release from the Washington Administrative Office of the Courts. Right? Let's see what they're on about. No, first let's ask, how is it that a bar exam blocks minorities and so-called marginalized people? How does that constitute a disproportionate harm? What exactly does disproportionate mean in this context? It means these minorities don't pass the exam at high rates. That's what that means. So instead of recognizing that candidates who can't pass it are not qualified, we're going to do a reversal and say that the test is an oppressor. That's the sign of this Marxist communist mindset. All relationships are oppressor-oppressed, power over, power exercised on. They cannot think outside of this. So, I mean, given that, why have any tests at all? If it's possible to fail a test, that itself means the test is bad, it measures no necessary skills, and it only exists to make black people fail. And oh no, you're not allowed to voice any concerns about the competence of lawyers that you'll have to hire who couldn't pass a bar exam because that would be racist, naturally. More from the story in the Spokesman Review. We'll put this quote on your screen. Washington is the second state to not require the bar exam following Oregon, which implemented the change at the start of this year. Other states, including Minnesota, Nevada, South Dakota, and Utah, are examining alternative pathways to licensure. Alternative pathways, always with the social worker language. It's just Keisha's personal law journey, right? Just on a journey to become a lawyer in a non-traditional way. You see how this idea is spreading into other states. We'll get back to Oregon too, because Oregon's not just doing this for lawyers, it's doing it for students. Now, to be fair, at least from what I've read, the people making these decisions do have an interesting approach to apprenticeships. And they lay out 3 approaches that people can use to become lawyers instead of traditionally taking the bar exam. Number 1, law school grads can do a 6-month apprenticeship under the supervision of a lawyer and complete 3 classes. In what? I don't know. The details aren't worked out yet. Number 2, law students can complete 25 qualifying skills credits, whatever that is, 500 hours as a legal intern, and then submit a work portfolio that will allow them to skip the exam. And number 3, law clerks can become lawyers if they, without going to school, if they, quote, complete standardized education materials and hit, quote, benchmarks under an attorney's supervision, and then do 500 hours of legal intern work. Now, it's already the case I don't know if it's in every state, but I believe it's in most states. It's already the case that a person can take the bar exam and get licensed without even going to law school. And I think this is a good idea. If the bar exam actually assesses your skill, you shouldn't have to go to school to prove it through the exam. There are people who are autodidacts. I have known people who have studied the law on their own, took the bar exam, became a lawyer, did not go to law school, and have had successful practices. And I also think that apprentices should be much more widely available in a lot of fields instead of merely a college requirement. Apprenticeships are one way to identify truly talented people who may not be able to go to school. Maybe they can't afford to go to school. We've made college degrees a proxy for competence in all sorts of arenas that college degrees should not matter for at all. And it's pulled the rug out from under poor families in some cases. I mean, look what's happened to journalism since the industry started requiring, and it's a soft requirement. You know, I got hired without it, but then again, that was more than 20 years ago. Journalism schools became all the rage in the late 20th century. And as a result of this, as I talked about this on the show, I think it was last week or the week before, the class structure in newsrooms has been inverted. It used to be mostly working class people who would go out and learn the craft underneath older reporters, beat the street. Not now. It's all elites. It's all graduates from journalism school. And you see how the news coverage has changed. The people who are reporting the news to you, or rather creating the news, they do not share any class sympathy with average, ordinary Americans, let alone the working poor, or what is it that they're calling the Southerners, the white rural rage voters? You see, those ideas for law licensure in Washington might be interesting. I like the idea of apprenticeships. But because this is about race and identity, we cannot trust it. This is about lowering standards. Everyone has already accepted that anytime non-white people can't pass an exam or get a credential, that automatically means that racism and bigotry is the reason for that. We've scuppered the idea of competence at all. It's amazing how people don't see this. If you can't pass the bar exam, how are you? Never mind. Let's move on to the next. Now let's get to public schools. This is called Grammar as Racist. We see how this is going on in public schools as well. A year or two of forcing kids to take Zoom classes because of the alleged pandemic has put already awful test scores all the way down into the toilet. In the state of Oregon, they've already waived what they call essential skill requirements as a condition of graduating high school up through 2025. But guess what? Recently, they extended it. They've waived the requirements to demonstrate your essential skills through the year 2028. You don't really think they're going to reinstate it in 2029, do you? This is a one-way ratchet. Don't be getting any ideas. But really, we don't even need a state like Oregon to back off on the formal requirements because the revolutionary proletariat teachers are already rebelling against curriculum and standards all on their own, and nobody seems to be stopping them. No, actually, more than that, they're rebelling against grammar itself. Take a look at this teacher.
Okay, speaking as an educator, as well as just a human being, we need to remember that things like this is white supremacy. The idea that grammar, that proper syntax, that whatever it is that you think needs to be corrected in a moment of someone expressing or saying something is racist. I say this to educators because that tweet was from educators attacking another educator who is a woman of color and also our union president, the second largest teachers union in the United States. And she is the first woman of color to be our president. And if you know LA, that's a big deal. So the fact that we have educators who are saying with their full chest that what she said was incorrect and trying to police her language because of grammar, because they were upset they did not get their way, even though a majority vote went through the House, really speaks to who these educators are. And this is a call-in, and I want to be honest about that. It truly is a call-in because I'm not naming names, I'm just saying you as a group need to work on do better. Because if that's what you're saying out front, publicly, saying that all right there, like, honey, what is going on? Because if that's what you're saying, what is happening behind your closed door in your classroom then? Like, really think, is that how you would talk to a student in your classroom? And if it isn't, why do you think it's okay to talk to an adult that way? Like, let's all sit with that and stop throwing a fit on Twitter by attacking other people. You can be upset, you can post your upsetness, you can post how unfair it feels to you. That is fine, but you should never use that harm, that trauma, that hurt to go and attack another human being, especially a human being that is leading us, especially when they are a woman of color. Do better.
Let me read for you the tweet that this male to female prone took issue with. You heard testosterone voice, right? Did you see her? Rainbow logo on the shirt, dressed like a teenager. Testosterone voice. These are the examples. These are the people teaching your children in public school. So this is the tweet that got her so exercised to make this video. Grammar is racialized white supremacy. Actually, let me set this up for you. This is a tweet from the Educators Caucus for Israel. I don't know anything about them. It's the first time I've heard of them, but they're clearly pointing to a problem here, and this is what they said in the tweet. They quoted, grammar is racialized white supremacist culture. That's a quote from Cecily Mayart Cruz, president of the Los Angeles Unified School District Teachers Union, at a House of Reps meeting last night. Of note, she called out someone for mistyping UTLA a moment later. Is spelling policing as bad as grammar policing? And that was from the Educators Caucus of Israel. But that was a racist. So the Educators Caucus points out that a woman who calls grammar racist has no problem pointing out other people's spelling problems. And our trim teacher doesn't like this because it's right. So it has to be a racist attack on a woman of color to point it out, right? And I can't let this go by. Funny she should be talking about saying something with your whole chest, because she can't do that. She doesn't have her whole chest, does she? No, because she's had her breasts removed, it looks like. Another wonderful example for the children. Do you like our cluster B world? I love it. And of course, we have the obligatory do better. This is germline infection too. It's being passed down to the students. Unstable mental messes, like this self-harming woman, are teaching American children that speaking, writing, and using arithmetic correctly are bad and stupid things that they don't need. Have you noticed all the young people around you who can't comprehend what they read, even simple essays? Have you noticed how many of them cannot write a topic sentence or a paragraph? How many can't do simple grocery store arithmetic? I know I never shut up about it, but it's happening all the time, and I'm actually seeing other people comment on it now. But this, what we just showed you, this is worse because this incompetence is being ingrained as a value in these students by their teachers. And they too, these students, will pass this incompetence and this, what is the word I'm looking for? Their belief that incompetence is fine, is a fine thing. They're going to pass this down to their own children and to the children they teach if they become teachers. This is such a contrast between, well, today is such a contrast to the experience that I had in public school. And I was a public school kid from 1979 to the early 90s. Well, I'm a high school dropout. So. And public school had problems in those days, but they were nowhere near as big as the problems now. In third grade, I had a really big difficulty with math, with multiplication tables specifically. You can't get past, you can't move up to things like algebra without the basics. You need to understand arithmetic by rote memory, and you need to know your multiplication tables by heart. My third grade teacher, Mrs. McGonigal, yes, that was her name, did me a huge favor. I was embarrassed about it at the time, but what she did was she took my lunch recess away from me for a week, and she sat down at the lunch table with me with multiplication table flashcards, and we practiced those while eating lunch 5 solid days, over and over and over and over. So many drills, so many repetitions. Well, guess what? At the end of the week, I knew my multiplication tables by heart, and I've known them by heart ever since. I immediately moved from not really making the grade in math to at least a level of competence. That is what a teacher should be doing. That is what school is for. That is correct pedagogy. Thank God for Mrs. McGonigal. All right. Do you like what you get here on Disaffected? Then would you help us make the show, please? We don't have advertisers or sponsors. We only have you, our audience, for whom we are very grateful. Do you want to make a gift to help us make the show? One time, small or large, just go to disaffected.com and click on Support Us. That's disaffected.com and then click on Support Us. You can throw in $1, $2, $3, $50. We absolutely appreciate it. If you want to give us ongoing help and get an invite to our members-only private Discord chat, there's 2 ways to do it. Sign up as a monthly subscriber through our Substack, disaffectedpod.substack.com, or if you like, go over to subscribestar.com/disaffected. We'll see you after the break. Can't get enough of our love, baby? That's because you're not subscribed. Move that thumb over to the great big old subscribe button on your podcast app so you never miss an episode. We put out audio-only exclusive content that you won't get on any other video platform, so make sure you subscribe today. Did you see the cat? I think she's off to your, what is it, your screen right or screen left? This is Mina. Say hello, Mina. Anyway, ready for more germline infection? This comes to us from the wonderful account Libs of TikTok, and it's about the Mayo Clinic. Oh, yeah, I'm sorry, but this is what happens. I cannot talk to you, my loyal audience, without a kitty cat. Hi. Yes, you're very cute, but the people want to hear from me, not you. You guys are like, no, more cats, please. Would you shut up? Come on, baby. All right. So, Mayo Clinic, libs of TikTok. We'll put this up on your screen. She tweets, unbelievable. Top healthcare company, Mayo Clinic. It's discriminating against straight white people in their inclusive hiring practices. Even criminals are being prioritized to be hired as nurses. How does this ensure that patients will receive the best medical care possible? Well, it doesn't, does it? So, here in two images is the hiring ad that Mayo Clinic has got out right now. This is for licensed practical nurse in ambulatory cardiology. And they've outsourced their hiring to some company called Jobs for Humanity. Jobs for people and not cows? That's really inclusive. Job description. Jobs for Humanity is partnering with the Mayo Clinic to build an inclusive and just employment ecosystem. Therefore, we prioritize individuals coming from the following communities. Refugee, neurodivergent, single parent, blind or low vision, deaf or hard of hearing, Black, Hispanic, Asian, military veterans, I don't believe that, the elderly, the LGBTQ, and justice-impacted individuals. This position is open to candidates who reside in and have the legal right to work in the country where the job is located. I don't believe them on that front either. So, who does the Mayo Clinic think will make the best nurses? Refugees. Not Americans, mind you, but refugees. Oh, I'm so, migrants, newcomers. I bet they won't even check if they're legal. I know that they say that in the ad, but it's skating so close to the line of a violation of the equal employment opportunity laws. Anyway, they also think single parents. No, you know what? No, it's not single parents. It's single mothers, isn't it? Almost all single parents are single mothers, or I think it's at least 70%, maybe more than that. They also think that anyone who's Black, anyone who's Asian, anyone who's Hispanic, and anyone who's old, and anyone who's LGBTQ plus whatever that means will make the best nurse. They didn't talk about prioritizing people who had the highest scores in nursing school or who had the best job reviews. No, identity characteristics. None of these demographic traits have anything to do with demonstrated competence. So why are they prioritizing them? The worst part, though, is justice-impacted individuals. First of all, can we just take a moment to recognize how ugly that phrase is? Justice-impacted individuals. I guess it's cat time again. They can't say cons, convicts, ex-cons, the formerly incarcerated. Nope, justice-impacted individuals. Good Lord, that's an ugly phrase. No word, of course, on the justice impact to any. These are felons. What they want is felons doing nursing. How do you like that? No word for them on the justice impact to any of the victims of these felons, of course. They're not justice impacted. Justice impacted. I've also heard justice involved or experience of the justice system. You see, they've turned it around to make it seem that the people who, linguistically, that the people who were convicted of crimes have been hurt by the justice system. The justice system did a thing to them. They didn't do nothing. They didn't do nothing. Justice system screwed them. And people yell at James Lindsay and tell him that he's crazy for saying that we are being taken over by Marxists. You know, the Mayo Clinic is one of the most prestigious medical institutions in the world. This is happening at the very top level. This is germline infection. This sets the standard for an entire profession. We don't stand a chance. Let's move away from medicine and talk about, well, more justice. More justice impacts. I learned this week from the Matt Walsh show that the Nashville, Tennessee Police Department has launched its own war on competence. They've decided that they need more women police officers. Why? They don't say. They never say. And of course, they don't acknowledge that women have no business being frontline beat cops who have to tackle and deal with stronger male suspects and criminals. That's just basic common sense, but we cannot have that anymore because common sense does harm. That's capital H harm. How many women do they want? Well, let's take a look at this from Fox News. Here's a quote for you. To hire more female police officers, the Metro Nashville Police Department has abandoned its physical test requirements and replaced it with a physical agility test, as well as implemented lactation rooms for nursing mothers. The move is part of the department's pledge to the national 30 by 30 initiative, which aims to advance women in the police force 30% by 2030. The force signed onto the initiative in 2021, and major changes have since been made. I apologize to you for the very poor writing in that Fox News report. I believe what this means is that the Nashville Police Department wants 30% of its officers to be women by 2030. Do you think, how many women would, sometimes I don't even know how to talk about this because the conversation is so rigged. We're so emotionally rigged that telling the truth about this almost automatically sounds like you're saying women are stupid, women can't do anything. Nobody's saying that. The basic reality here is that, do we have to say this? Women are physically weaker than men. They're shorter. Their bones are smaller. They have less muscle mass. They don't have the heart and lung capacity of men. It's 2024. Why do we have to say this? Why is it forbidden to say this? Why is it forbidden to acknowledge that it's true? This is insane. The level of disconnection from reality that we're living in this country is so far beyond anything that I thought would happen to us before. I mean, even when I was a wokie, even when I was a progressive liberal, I did not go this far. I didn't anticipate that we would actually not even be allowed in the conversation to note that there are physical differences between men and women in jobs that matters for. How much farther is this going to go? Anyway, we've got more about the Nashville police. Do you know what else they want? Here's a quote from Commander Tiffany Gibson. Commander Tiffany Gibson told the outlet she would like to see, quote, our own child care facility as another addition to the initiative's goal in the future. But there are no unintended consequences to making the entire work world built for women and women's concerns, right? To think that is just plain old misogyny. It means you hate women. Well, I suggest they poach some of the single mothers from the applicant pool over at the Mayo Clinic. And, I mean, why not? Try some justice-impacted felons, too. What could go wrong? You'll see what can go wrong. Do you want to see what the new test, the new physical agility test for women cops is? Take a gander at this.
This is the chain link fence climb. For this test, you're to run up to the fence, scale the fence, and continue running to the finish line. The test may be administered twice with at least a 2-minute rest period between administrations. Your fastest time will be used as your score. Solid wall climb. For this test, you're to run up to the wall, scale the wall, and continue running to the finish line. This test may be administered twice with at least 2 minutes rest period between administrations. Your fastest time will be used as your score. 99-yard agility run. This test simulates a short distance foot pursuit that could occur in a parking lot. This test requires you to make frequent changes of directions while running as fast as possible. You will have to step over several obstacles and clear a small obstacle while continue running. This test may be administered twice, if desired, with a 2-minute rest period between tests.
That's a chain link fence. That's a wall to climb. If you can't see this, if you're just listening, these are literally the size of baby or dog pen gates that you put between rooms. They're maybe 3 feet high, maybe 3.5 feet high. Hell, I know dogs that can and have gotten over these. And you get a 2-minute rest period during the test after climbing the baby gate and then jogging it off around a couple of parking cones in a parking lot. I can do everything you can do, and I do it backwards and in heels. That's what they should have done. They should have made them put on heels and do it backwards. You want to be a lady about it? Show me. You know, we can make fun of this, but it's deadly serious. Would you trust any woman police officer like this to protect you from a male criminal? What if you had to call the cops on your violent husband? Is she going to be your savior in a fraught domestic situation? Is she going to take your husband down? This is madness. And it has become so normalized that even what was uncontroversially thoroughly male work and male work cultures like policing, they're adopting this too. Even Southern conservative cities like Nashville are doing it. Well, they have to now, don't they? Because competent men are not applying to become police anymore, and they're not signing up for the military anymore. These places have told them, white men, but white men even more specifically, that they are worse than useless. Their masculinity is actually a problem. You know that thing that you need to be a cop or a firefighter? Strong masculinity, get the work done? No. Why would any man want to do this? Who would sign up for this? The first time a cop like this has to tase or shoot a black suspect, for example, his career is over, his reputation is shot, he's all over the news media, and he has to go into hiding. We've seen it happen before. So, welcome to your new female cops. What kind of women do you think are going to sign up for this? The best women? Nope. Hey, kitty, move over. Stop jiggling the table, kitty. There's a camera there. Sorry, this is what you get when it's home style. The whole thing is just ridiculous. Let's move over to billionaire Twitter owner Elon Musk. He is concerned about the crisis in competence too. Okay, this cat is not going to leave us alone, so we're going to put her right here. Elon Musk remarks on this a lot. He sat down recently with disgraced former CNN host Don Lemon to talk about the abandoning of standards in medical schools. And this exchange between the two of them highlights a problem that many people have seen. We have this modern inability to understand hypothetical scenarios or counterfactuals or sometimes even analogies. The kind of propositions that say, imagine A is the case, and given that, what would happen? And I've been talking about this to a few people. I think there's a split here. I've noticed this, especially among much younger people. They really do seem intellectually unable to grasp a hypothetical or a counterfactual or an analogy. They react to them emotionally. You say something like, as A is to B, then C is to D, and if it has any negative connotation, how dare you compare thing A to thing B? They're not the same. No, I understand. We're not saying they're the same. We're saying that they occupy a parallel relationship between another thing, just as... No, they're not the same. Why are you saying that? How did this happen? How did this happen? What? I don't understand. That's young people, but then there are older people like Don Lemon, who we're going to see in the clip here. I don't actually believe him. I don't think he misunderstands this the way he claims that he does. I think he understands it perfectly well. He's just willing to lie. It's really a pathetic display. Let's take a listen to this brief conversation between Elon Musk and Don Lemon.
I believe that if we lower the standards for what it takes to become a doctor...
You're saying if we lower the standards, yes. But do you believe people are dying because the standards are being lowered?
I don't think that is yet an issue, but it could become an issue.
Okay. But the actual evidence in history shows the exact opposite. If you look at how minorities are treated by the medical system, most doctors now are white. And there are lots of mistakes in medicine. So you're saying that white doctors have bad medical care? I'm trying to understand your logic here when it comes to DEI, because there's no actual evidence of what you're saying.
No, I said, so if the standards, like let's say, I think that particular thing was referring to surgeons. Let's say a surgeon is asked to, a surgeon in training is asked to do a series of operations under the supervision of a senior surgeon, and they get a bunch of those operations wrong. If that happens, and yet they are still approved to be a surgeon, the probability that someone will die, I think, at some point is high.
Okay, I understand that, but that's a hypothetical. That doesn't mean it's happening.
I didn't say it's happening.
You didn't say it was happening.
I said it will. I said if we lower standards, people will die.
But why respond to something or put something out there that has not happened? Because I could say,
because I don't want it to happen. I think we don't want to lower standards.
Okay, if you look at the history of the medical industry, especially when it comes to Black Americans, it shows the exact opposite. If you look at the Tuskegee experiment and on, only 5% of doctors in America are Black. All of them are white. So are you saying that if the majority of doctors are white, are you saying that and there are still these inequities, right? And there's still mistakes. Are you blaming DEI for that?
No, I'm very basically saying that if we lower standards for what it takes to become a board-certified surgeon, or an oncologist, or something where the kind of disease we're talking about, if you make a mistake, causes someone to die, then more people will die than if we don't lower the standards. Therefore, we should not lower the standards.
But why do you think they're lowering the standards for minority doctors or women doctors, or?
That's what that's what that article suggested. Yes, at Duke University.
Okay.
Okay. Don Lemon is lying. He can only see this through race and identity politics, so he has to lie and pretend that he, Don, thinks Elon is saying all Black doctors are bad and all white doctors make no mistakes. Don Lemon does not believe this. This is just lying. I made a few notes here. Elon says, I didn't say this was happening, I said it will happen. Elon was talking about if they lower the standards, then we're going to have incompetent doctors that are going to cause more deaths. He says, I didn't say it was happening, I said it will happen. And Don Lemon comes back, why put something out there that hasn't happened? Are you kidding me? No, he's not kidding. He's lying to us. But the kicker is Don Lemon's response on his own show. And by the way, his show is on X, formerly known as Twitter. He made a deal with Elon Musk, and since CNN booted him out, he's now on X. And I think Elon Musk was very gracious to say, you could hear and see the frustration that Elon was going through, because I think Elon knows that Don is lying too. He's pretending he doesn't understand this conversation. Well, Elon probably won't do that again, will he? But here's what Don Lemon had to say about this the next day on his show.
And people have been asking me what I meant by when I said he did not like answering questions or being held to account from people like me. And so some people took it to mean a racial thing. I meant someone who has a different worldview. But since people raised it and you said what you said, do you think that he was uncomfortable? I didn't want to go there. Do you think he was uncomfortable sitting in front of a gay Black guy?
Probably more gay than Black, I would think. I hate to say that, but I don't know. I mean,
having to answer questions from...
I don't think he likes control beyond himself. And so it doesn't matter who's exerting it. I don't think he much likes Joe Biden either.
Is it because I is Black and gay? Seriously? How much longer can this go on? Probably forever. All right. What about you? Do you need someone to talk over a problem relationship with? Your husband, your boss, your HR director? Are you running into narcissism or political, ideological bullying at home or at work? You can talk to me. I offer one-on-one coaching and consulting that you can find through joshuaslocum.net. It's not therapy, but you will get a conversation with somebody who understands because I've been through it both personally and professionally. I would love to help you see your situation and your options realistically and talk about what some potential solutions are. So if you're interested, book time at joshuaslocum.net. Sessions are $125 an hour, but paid supporters of Disaffected and returning clients get a $30 discount. And then come back for the rest of the show. We're going to have an autopsy of the last Madonna concert that I'm ever going to go to. My friend George and I talk about the most disappointing show that she's ever put on that we've seen, and we'll tell you what she looks like from 15 feet away. Again, don't get scared off if you're not into Madonna. This conversation is really about what happens when a cluster B personality disorder turns terminal in the world of Hollywood fame, and what it's like to have been a young, unreflective superfan, as both of us were, who have grown up and changed our politics in middle age. So I hope you enjoy it. Can't get enough of our love, baby? That's because you're not subscribed. Move that thumb over to the great big old subscribe button on your podcast app so you never miss an episode. We put out audio-only exclusive content that you won't get on any other video platform, so make sure you subscribe today. Welcome to on-location remote filming for Disaffected with George. Ding. All right. So we wanted to talk about Madonna. Don't run away, Disaffectants. If you don't like her, if she's never been your favorite, I understand it. I get it. But we're going to talk about Cluster B and the other things that you come to this show for, using her as an example. We just went to see her show last night here in Denver. And I never thought that I would be talking about my teenage idol this way, but I was disappointed, probably not surprised, but I have some things to say about it, and I really think this is going to be my last show. Now, you and I have been to many of her concerts before.
Many.
You know, this woman's our generation. She's our Taylor Swift or Lady Gaga or whatever. And obviously has a huge gay fan base who was out in force last night. We're going to talk about them and the women too. But why don't I have some strong feelings to get across. Why don't I let you give some thoughts first?
Well, all in all, I will say I enjoyed the show. And when I say I enjoyed it, I think I'm enjoying it because I'm a fan. And so I'm going to enjoy any new experience that I get to experience, any new show, because it's her whole shtick is reinvention, right? So
Right.
It's always something different or something new.
Borderline.
Correct. Exactly. We can get to that. I enjoyed it. I did not enjoy it as much as I'd enjoyed other shows.
Mm-hmm.
There were aspects of this show that I didn't like. Honestly, I didn't like the fact there was no band.
Yes.
It was all pre-recorded, digital tracks. I knew that going in, that there was no band, because I had read some stuff up on the I had read up on the show. And many pop singers nowadays sing to vocal tracks.
Mm-hmm.
They will have their vocal track and they'll sing over it.
Mm-hmm.
I also knew that was coming. So I'm not really annoyed by that, because there's so much physical activity in shows that it's easy for people to lose their breath or
Mm-hmm.
whatever. So I just, whatever. And I know that there are some people who are like, I didn't pay for that. Yeah. Okay, great. That's you. That's fine. But for a Madonna show, you go for sort of you go for the spectacular
Yes. You go for the spectacle.
performance. Yes, exactly. This was a letdown for me, and for you.
Yeah.
My husband Clay went with us as well, and I think he shares our feelings on it. There were parts that we all enjoyed. I mean, there were
Yeah.
parts that we enjoyed, and there were other parts that we thought we just didn't get, or we just were missing something. I wondered, and I shared this with you last night after this. I wonder if we've always seen the shows on the floor really close to her because
Yeah, we had floor seats last night, second row. I mean, we were basically right next to a major portion of the stage. So she was maybe 10 or 15 feet away from us for a lot of the show.
Yes.
And that's, we discovered that after we finally sprang for expensive tickets. I don't remember what the first show was, but
several years ago.
it's worth it.
It is worth it.
If you want to see a superstar, and I do, I want to see that person in the flesh. I want them to be real in the room with me. And it's an entirely different experience to be physically right next to them and to be able to see them with your own eyes rather than looking up at a jumbotron.
Right, right. So we've always been down on the floor, really close to her, as close as possible as we, and we always end up getting really close.
Yeah,
which is nice.
we've done well.
We've done well. I feel like maybe this show was a show that was meant to be experienced further back. I think that this show had a lot of spectacle that you were supposed to see on a grand,
framed this way rather than right up
or
next
even
to
from
it.
the side, just to be able to get the whole like staging and where everybody was, because there was a main stage and then there were like two units that came out from the side and met in the middle, and then a middle.
Yeah, there was a lot of space to walk around.
Yes, there were a lot of individual stages. There was also a giant square, light box almost
Right.
that she could fly up in and kind of go over the crowd, and she did that several times during the show. Anyway, all in all, I wondered if this was a show that was meant to be experienced from further back, so you could see everything that was going on kind of all at once. I felt seeing the show up close this time, as fun as it was to be up close to her, which is always fun, I just didn't feel like I got the experience that I'd always gotten before.
Yeah, and you may be right, but I'm not sure that my summation of this show is that she phoned it in.
You said that last night, yeah.
So there's a couple of things I want to talk about. I want to talk about the technical deficiencies of the show, but I also want to talk about who she's become.
Yes.
So technically, it was shitty. The worst sound I have ever experienced in a major concert, bar none. Absolute worst. Just in terms of auditory, being able to hear it, the sound was so muddy. There was no treble response. You didn't get any crisp highlights, which means that it was impossible when she was speaking between sets. I could understand maybe a few words of what she said. It was, and the music was the same. The lack of a band really showed up sonically. It was muddy. And I don't know, because we've seen her in this arena in Denver before, and the sound was great.
Oh yeah, fantastic. You could hear everything.
You could hear everything. You could hear the mistakes. You could hear the lip smacking. You could hear everything.
Yes.
This was like listening to a 1980s boombox with the equalizer, all the way turned down and the mids turned up.
Yes.
And distorting bass. It was so distorted and there was so much echo that when songs began, I could tell what song they were because I understood the rhythm and I could hear one or two of the lyrics, but I literally could not identify what key it was in. I couldn't hear the musical note. I was like, is it this note? Is it this note? There was so much interference back and forth, and it was really terrible. And the only blessing was that that, of course, not only disguised the pronunciation of the lyrics, but also the obnoxious political, patting herself on the back that she does between sets.
Yes.
And now she's 65 years old, which is a big part of what we're going to talk about here. You can't do the acrobatic dancing at 65 that you can do at 30 or even at 50.
Right.
But it was really noticeable last night. She did almost no dancing. And I didn't think that there was a compensation vocally for that lack. Because, for the past 15 or 20 years, she's rearranged her shows so that she would take breaks from the acrobatic dancing performance so that she could actually sing well. And although people, a lot of people who haven't been fans of listen to everything probably don't believe it, but she can actually sing really well live when she wants to. The vocal training she got in the 90s paid off. And when she's breathing properly and when she's not running around, her voice can really be very pretty, especially on ballads. And that's what I wanted to hear, and I didn't hear it.
Well, which is like normal. Like any normal singer, any trained singer is going to sound better when they're not running around huffing and puffing.
Right.
That's sure. And I agree with you. I think that I didn't have the problems with the music that you're talking about. Although I can see why you did or how someone
Well,
could.
maybe it's something to do with my hearing too.
I had an issue. The sound was bad. It was bad. You could not understand what she was saying. She would be talking and it was just like you could make out a couple of words and that was it. And I was like, am I just in a weird muddy spot on the floor and
It's possible.
And it's just a weird we're just in this
Acoustically,
weird
yeah.
acoustically section. Because as you said, we've seen shows at what used to be called the Pepsi Center, is now the Ball Arena. We've seen the shows before, and I've seen other shows there before, and it's never sounded so muddy. So I was just like, what is this?
Yeah.
It was just that was disappointing.
And this was a greatest hits tour, right? So a catalog of all your favorite hits, which is what, she's a legacy act.
Yes.
Right? We're middle-aged.
Yes.
This is what we were going for. This is the red meat that we wanted. And she did. She sang a lot of her back catalog, and that was great. And there were some performances that I really liked and some looks that I liked. But I could not, and we were talking about this last night. Madonna is obviously every cluster B personality disorder. She's actually a really good example of what I talk about on the show when I say there's a state of mind, there's a psychology that we can accurately call cluster B. It's a personality disorder in this cluster of traits. But more people, I think, have a helping of traits from each of these allegedly 4 discrete disorders than can be easily categorized as, oh, this one's only borderline, this one's only histrionic, this one's only narcissistic. And Madonna is, the narcissism is obvious.
Oh, always.
It's extreme and it's obvious.
Sure.
The reinvention, right? Her whole thing, I'm going to reinvent
totally
myself.
borderline.
It's completely borderline.
Absolutely.
Unstable self-image, unstable sense of self,
Yes.
needing or wanting to be a new person all the time to get the love back from people and get them interested again. And the histrionic is also obvious. The aggressive sexual provocation that is 3 notches higher than anybody else would ever go is native to histrionic personality disorder.
Well, and so many of her lyrics over the years are about who am I? I don't know who I am, searching for identity. I mean, it's baked in.
It is, and it's sad to me what we watched last night, because Madonna has made her face and her body the product for her 40-year career. And I wrote something about this on Substack. Part of the appeal, at least for fans like me, and I think maybe like you, the narcissism was part of the appeal.
Oh, for sure.
Watching her watch herself was what we were there for. You said this last night. She has an iconic face.
Yes.
And she does. She has a face that is instantly recognizable, that looks like nobody else. Not that she looks like her, but there's crossover similarities here. Madonna is the new Joan Crawford.
Yes.
But she has a face the way Joan Crawford had a recognizable face. It's that level of iconic, okay, this means American Hollywood or music or,
Right.
right. So when you put all of your eggs into that basket and your face starts aging, you got problems, right?
Which is exactly what happened to Joan, right?
Yeah, exactly. The makeup got thicker and
blueprint.
heavier until it was a caricatured mask of the
Right,
facial features that she was born with.
Right.
And, you know, you can, I think Madonna is decompensating psychologically. I think what we're looking at is the end stage of a terminal cluster B personality disorder. She's decompensating because she's getting old and she can't handle it, and she's running away from an unhappy childhood, as most famous people are. Hollywood, and I use the term Hollywood expansively to mean that entertainment universe. Hollywood attracts broken people who are trying to run away from the childhood where they weren't good enough, they weren't smart enough, they weren't lovable enough, they weren't beautiful enough. And she's very clearly trying to run away from this. She's spent her entire life. It's as if the unconscious belief is, I can get over the pain of my mother dying at 5. I can get over my very troubled relationship with my father. I can get over feeling neglected and lost among 8 siblings with a dead mother. I can get over all that if I can just be the sexiest girl in the world forever.
Yes.
And that's what she's been trying to do for 40 years. And now she's 65.
Well, and the sexiest, the most famous, the most talked about. And this is the thing. The funny thing about this is that she is the most famous woman
Right.
in the world. She still is the most famous woman. And I say that because I'm sure there are a lot of people out there that are like, well, there's beyond, well, there's this, that.
Yeah, but she has reached a level of superstardom. We talked about this the
Yes.
other day. We don't have superstars anymore. Even Taylor Swift, even Beyonce. Yes, they're the biggest things. You know, Taylor Swift's the biggest grossing tour. I get all that. That's real. But in terms of a cultural institution, they're not on the same level. They're Michael Jackson, Madonna, Elvis Presley. There's a certain indescribable thing to that.
Correct.
We don't have that anymore. We don't have superstars anymore, and I don't think we'll have them again because we don't have the shared culture that is filtered through a limited set of magazines and television channels and MTV. Everything is hyper bespoke and segmented and siloed
Say
now.
Cher is probably another
Cher,
one of those people.
right.
Yeah. And there are others I think you could mention that may not be as famous, but like they're all, you know, they're still within that category of like people know who they are.
Yep.
You know, Elton John, you know, and things like that. Anyway, but you're absolutely right. We do not have stars anymore. And what I was going to say, what's interesting about it is it goes back to that line from the television series Feud that we like so much, right? There's this pinnacle within the show where Joan Crawford and Betty Davis are having an argument, and it comes to this head where Betty finally asks Joan, what was it like to be the most beautiful girl in the room?
In the world.
In the world, yes. And Joan says it was wonderful, but it was never enough.
Yep.
And then she asks Betty, what was it like to be the most talented girl in the world? And she says, great.
And it was never enough. And nothing's ever enough. And
that's Madonna.
It is. And so if you're curious, yes, it was vulgar and obscene.
Well, parts of it.
Parts of it, yes. You know, I mean, she's, you know, she hires these 20, 25-year-old dancers, obviously, and leaves most of the dancing to them.
Right.
But she's simulating masturbation and oral sex with a guy's head between her legs, who's 40 years her junior.
Right.
You know, and, you know, I wrote about this on Substack too. I don't want to take the cheap angle of criticizing her looks because people are excessively vicious about that.
Yeah.
But the God's honest truth is she's done this to herself.
Yes.
The plastic surgery, the refusal to cover up, the refusal to be an attractive and dignified older woman. Like what I was hoping for in a show like this is that she would give sly and arch winks to her youthful bad girl self. You know, be a little bit naughty, be a little bit bawdy.
Right.
But leave the raunch
Right.
in the past. She didn't leave the ranch in the past.
Give a wink, wink, nudge, nudge to the past.
Yeah. Oh no, this is full on. I'm still that same bitch.
Yeah.
No, you're not. And so how does she look? She doesn't look as freakish as you've seen in the Candids over the past years. You know, the swelling from that surgery calmed down. She looks like herself, just a little too worked on the face. But
She doesn't look terrible.
No, she doesn't. I mean, she looks fine. But the contrast between that and her body just tells on her. I mean, the skin under her arms is sagging. You know, I'm not trying to be cruel, but as you said, she's getting the crepey skin. Her jawline is going. She's got turkey neck. And she's squeezing herself into these corsets and teddies. And her back skin is literally just like
She's spilling
out of it. And it's just not, it's neither attractive nor is it dignified.
Right.
And I just thought to myself, you can still be an attractive, compelling woman.
Yes.
Visually, you don't have to do this.
Right. Well, and the sad thing about it is, as having this conversation is that there's going to be somebody out there, inevitably, who's like, you don't talk about men the way that you talk about women or whatever. And I'm like, if there was a man who was doing that, yeah, that's undignified.
Yeah, but
men also aren't.
But also, men and women are different.
Correct.
We didn't make these rules.
Yeah.
Okay. People evaluate men and women on different things. People
correct.
evaluate women on sex appeal in a way that they do not evaluate men to the same degree. That is simply the way people are.
And on top of it, it's
and
also
she's
the game
participating in it.
Correct. It is she has set the game for herself.
Yes.
This is the game. She created the game. She created the set pieces. This is her. This is her turf.
Right.
And she's set the rules. Well, and there's also societal rules along with it. But you understand what I'm saying. You know, she's playing this, and of course, when you're playing that game,
Look, you play the game and you abide by the rules. And if the game knocks you out, the game knocks you out. And I'm sorry, but you are not 28. You're not 30. You're not a young woman anymore. You're practically a senior citizen. You know, hopefully we'll all get there.
Right.
Right. But, you know, you could see it in the crowd last night, too. This is the sort of.
Oh, yes.
You know, I said to George when we got in there, I said, you know, for every show we go to at first, the crowd gets older. And I'm like, yeah, it's because you're getting older, too. I'm like, oh, my God, my feet and my back are killing me. Can this show please be over? And you know, it's mostly middle-aged people. And at least half these middle-aged women in their 50s, walking in there with lace rags in their hair, dressed up like they were going to the Virgin Tour in 1984. Yes. And the gay men, same thing. You know, I beg your pardon, but in gay terms, superannuated gay men in their 50s and 60s, wearing clothes that they should have hung up when they were 24 years old. Special hair and makeup and ostentatiously dancing around like they were fresh meat at the bar. And I'm just looking at that and I'm like, girl,
calm down.
This is embarrassing.
Yeah.
Right? As I sit there, I'm sitting there in a sweater.
A smart wool sweater. No, you're absolutely right. And I said it to you last night when we were sitting there before the show started. You know, as people are, you know, the crowd is getting bigger and bigger. People are streaming in and, you know, we start to see who's kind of around us. And I'm like, and it's like, yes, we always know there are going to be a ton of gay men at this show. Mm-hmm. And I'm watching them and I'm like, I'm sitting there and I'm looking at all these different characters, not people, characters. And I look and I lean over to Josh and I'm like, you know, I'm all for having fun and like dressing up, even Halloween, you know, whatever.
Sure.
You can have fun. It's no big deal. But like at a certain point, there are just certain outfits or certain choices that you're just like, you know, at your age, probably not a good idea. Like you just look ridiculous.
Yeah. Have some dignity.
Yeah, you look ridiculous. And you know, I know me. I know my body. I know what I look like. There are certain things I can't get away with.
Yeah.
And it's just, I'm not even going to go there. And, you know, it's having self-respect as well. You know,
Yeah.
Just have some self-respect. I don't mind if somebody's like wearing a Madonna t-shirt.
No, no,
you're
that's
at a
not
Madonna concert, of
right, of
course.
course.
That you're gonna have a little fun, whatever. I don't even care if you throw a little glitter on, whatever. You have a sparkly jacket or whatever. You're out. It's fun. You're going to something you're going to a rock concert. Cool. I'm talking about like you're like 21 years old and you're going out to the club and you've got the shortest shorts you can find and a tight little tank top and a cute little bag and all these all this jewelry on and all this, I mean, everything that you would do when you were like in your 20s and you were going out to a club. It's just, but you're like 50.
It's just embarrassing.
Well, it is. It is embarrassing, and I think it's a perfect example of that thing that we've talked about before, which is the stunted growth,
stunted emotional growth, and that's her too. And
yes.
we're going to have to wrap this up because people are not going to want to listen to an entire show about a gay icon. But I will say, the political shit. First of all, she brought 3 of her adopted African children out on stage to perform with her, very clearly basking in the idea of being this selfless world mother. I mean, talk about the new Joan Crawford, right? Mm-hmm. One of these kids is going to write Madonna Dearest. And and that's funny, but it isn't funny because I am quite sure that they are growing up in a psychological hellscape with that woman. And it's going to tell on them psychologically too. And
well, there's a reason I think Rocco, her son, keeps a bit of an arm's length.
Yeah,
I mean, he goes and sees her, and they hang out, and
but he went to live with his father, and he's like, I'll stay away from this, and she's still, she started giving this speech about how we have to protect and cherish all children. And the sound quality was so bad, but I knew that she was going into one of these trans queer things. And then, she puts a cape on that's the gay pride and the trans pink and blue colors.
The progress flag.
The progress flag, and sticks her nose in the air and walks off stage.
And singing Don't Cry For Me, Argentina.
Yeah. I thought to myself, I never thought I would say this about her because, I mean, look who I was as a young man. But it just came right into my head. This woman is emblematic of everything that is wrong with our culture now. Her values are in direct contradiction to mine. She was a bad influence on kids. She was a particularly bad influence on young girls. And she's just the example of the cluster B narcissistic society,
right?
And what she has is end stage trauma, really.
Do you remember? Sorry, I know we have to stop the show, but do you remember going back in time to Truth or Dare?
Mm-hmm.
There's a scene where toward the beginning of the show where she's talking about the dancers that she hired who were all like 20-somethings, real fresh-faced. And she said, she talks about, I think I've unconsciously chosen people who need mothering in some way. Mm-hmm. And she said, I think it fulfills a need in me to be mothered.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, it's so, I said something to you a couple days ago in general, not about this, but it fits here. We're not complicated.
No.
When people tell you that, it's like, of course, it slots right in.
The sadness about the sadness about this is we grew up, but people like her have not and never will.
And we're seeing it.
So, at any rate, that's our cluster B rundown on a decaying icon. Thanks for watching. And now come back after the break and we'll be back in the studio. Bye, George.
Bye.
Can't get enough of our love, baby? That's because you're not subscribed.
move that thumb over to the great big old subscribe button on your podcast app so you never miss an episode. We put out audio-only exclusive content that you won't get on any other video platform, so make sure you subscribe today. Thanks everyone for watching yet another episode of Disaffected Homestyle. We do appreciate it. And I don't know, it's probably been a while since you've seen him. Shredder wanted to say goodbye and hello. He's my big $1 million kitty. Say hi to everybody, Shred. This big boy. Oh, do you hear the growl? Do it again. Oh, that means it's time to go. Bye, Shredder. Thank you, everybody. We really appreciate you watching and listening each week, and we're looking forward to see you next time. Good night.